Welcome to the Content Podcast, Conversations with Silicon Valley's Creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates. This episode of the Content Magazine podcast is brought to you by Bonfire, a Silicon Valley digital agency building elevated websites for ambitious brands. Find out more about Bonfire at bonfire.com.
This is Emily.
Today we talk with Emily McEwan-Upright. She's the owner of Gallery 1202 in Gilroy and also the founder of 6th Street Studios and Art Center. Hey Emily, this is Daniel. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I am doing great. It's good to hear from you. I'm excited to be able to talk to you about all the great things that you're doing down in the Gilroy, South Valley area.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you too.
Yeah. So now, first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit, because you run Gallery 1202, and you've opened that up in 2019, which is like a little bit before the pandemic. But what was the impetus for you to start that gallery there in Gilroy?
Well, I've lived in Gilroy for several years. I bought my house, my first house here in 2009. And over the years, I have noticed, more and more kind of public art has been installed. And then I moved my tax practice downtown, and right after I had done my own artist residency. So I had a bunch of art and I wanted to kind of put it up. And once I opened the gallery, then I started noticing other art places, and I just felt like there was kind of this disconnected art community that could really benefit from a more kind of upfront contemporary space that could connect Gilroy with maybe some other South Bay areas like San Jose. San Jose has some great contemporary art places that are a little bit more alternative. And I love, the fact that we're bringing art down from not just San Francisco, but all the way down through here into Monterey Bay. And so that was kind of my initial thought, was just to create another art space here in Gilroy and kind of solidify the presence of art in this little agricultural town that is growing up pretty quickly.
Yeah. And you actually, and the gallery opened because the building is where you do your tax business, correct? And then you opened up
we initially opened up the gallery just in the front, like lobby area of my tax practice in April of 2019. And it just had, in December of 2017. And it just had my artwork in there.
Okay.
And we were there for about a year and a half. And then I decided to I wanted to create a larger space for the gallery and have it be more of a prominent space and have the tax practice kind of like in the back. And so that's when we found our current space, which is next to the Neon Exchange. Yeah. And so now we have our like large gallery in the front and then the tax practice in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you're a tax accountant, you're a spouse to a military person, and you have 2 kids, correct?
Yes.
You're crazy. How do you manage life and existence with so many things going on? How do you stay sane? What do you do to stay sane?
Well, I think I honestly think that the gallery did keep me sane. My husband, so we had our first child in 2016, and since I basically found out I was pregnant, my husband has been gone, detached, deployed, however, in whatever sense you want to call it, about 65% of the time.
Wow.
And so I've just decided, I was doing my tax practice and everything, and I just kind of wanted more fulfillment. And so just decided to kind of pursue this artistic
Yeah.
passion that I've had, but I knew I didn't want to do it in terms of my own practice because I wanted a little bit more time to focus on my practice than I have right now with two toddlers.
Yeah.
And so when my daughter was about 6 months old, that's when I really decided to move forward with the gallery thing. And it has just filled, it's just like has filled my life with so much satisfaction working with art on a business sense, which is what I, really feel like where I belong, I guess you can say, is kind of helping artists in the business wise, but also promoting
Yeah.
them without the pressure of having to make a living on my own in terms of with the gallery.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's probably where it really works for me because I have the very established tax practice, and then but I also have this gallery thing, and I don't depend on it to make a living, and so I can just
Yeah.
reinvest and make things work for these marginalized artists, and I just really
Yeah.
love that. So I think it's making me more sane than it would if I just
Yeah. Yeah. It's just pushing the numbers, right? Yeah.
right, yeah. So I love that. And then,
That's
once
great.
I did this, it was obvious about, how many local artists we have here that I can't do everything. So I couldn't do that with the gallery. I couldn't support them. So that's where like, kind of the nonprofit came in. So
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's great that you're. I mean, you have obviously. I mean, you majored in like art history, and you were an artist yourself. But the need for right for the space for artists to show and to have somebody who's going to be, promoting them and trying to sell their work and networking with other galleries and other artists is so crucial. So what you're doing is so important to the art world. And then I would think even for the Gilroy area, I mean, it's incredible. Which could you kind of even what would you say about the Gilroy art scene? Or even Morgan Hill, South Valley? I'm not sure, all the different
well,
names we can go. Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely the need for like there's a lot of artists out here, and I think that I'm just kind of seeing the surface of it.
yeah,
We've had some longstanding organizations here like the Gilroy Arts Alliance, and obviously we have like a arts commission here in Gilroy. But because the gallery was established probably 5 months before the pandemic hit. I haven't really been able to get every kind of I haven't really been able to connect the dots in terms of the art community.
yeah, yeah,
It's very disconnected. So there's lots of artists, but there's different types of artists, and then there's like lots of different age groups and interests and stuff like that. And so ideally, when I opened the gallery, I could see that there needed to be kind of this catalyst for connection. And so
yeah,
that's kind of where I branched off, into creating this the nonprofit sector of it, and I'm hoping to kind of bring the whole community together because
yeah,
we have a lot of public art commissions, which are great, and murals, and that's fantastic. But getting a resource of like a directory of artists for the South Bay would be
yeah. It's
incredible, and like
incredible. Yeah,
bringing San Benito County the artists from there because there's tons of artists out in Hollister,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and
So
so
and when you're talking about the nonprofit, you're talking about the Sixth Street Artist Studio. Is that right?
yeah, Sixth Street Studios and Art Center, which
Yeah,
is
Art Center.
we're almost up on our feet. So
Yeah, that's exciting. So,
yeah,
okay. So not only do you, so then let me step back and go through the list. Uh, uh, Military family, two children, tax company, gallery, and now nonprofit art community connection. So
yes.
you really are incredible.
Well, I appreciate that. But
Yeah,
I definitely have to give credit to the people who I work with and who've like, kind of come on board with me because it wouldn't be possible without them. I have a really fantastic team of women that work with me, and
yeah,
they they do amazing things. So it takes a village.
yeah, totally, of course. But I mean, are you definitely like the type of person who organizes or brings people together and has ideas? Have you always kind of been like that? Or is this kind of new, kind of coming out?
No, it's totally new. So when my parents came to my first art fair, they were like, who are you? Because I was like talking to people and really I'm really outgoing at art fairs, which is not my personality normally.
Yeah.
But being married to an active duty military member and being part of the naval aviation community has actually really brought out like a very dormant social side of me. And
Yeah.
we have a tight knit community in the aviation, naval aviation. So you get, you kind of like grow there, and you become more comfortable with asking for help, because
Yeah.
there's only certain people who really understand what you're going through when it comes to like a 9 month deployment that's been extended twice and you've had to cancel your wedding. um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and or you go through, like not a lot of people understood how it was to go through not only a pandemic but also a pandemic when your husband was deployed and moving in the middle of that. But
Yeah. Wow.
so you end up asking people for help where you normally would never, like I wouldn't have asked people for help like that. And now, because I've gone through that and I've been in for 10 years with in terms of being married to an active duty military member for 10 years, I feel much more confident in creating those connections and asking for
Yeah.
help and hire, just things like that, like involving people in my ideas and my dreams. And
Yeah. Yeah.
takes it takes a lot of growing to get to that spot for me.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's cool. So then now, and so then now the gallery, there's definitely a mission and an attention to what you're curating at the gallery. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the gallery is definitely focused on promoting and supporting marginalized artists, and that includes basically mostly women artists, because women
Mm-hmm.
artists are not fairly represented in galleries. They're not fairly represented in museums, collections, anything. Like it's just there's such a huge gender gap. And whether that is just from historical gender inequity, or because a lot of artists really make it bigger when they're younger, and women
Yeah.
historically are raising families and things like that, where they have other priorities that they have to work with as well. And
Yeah.
so a huge part of my mission has been to support women artists with young families, and
Yeah.
then just women artists in general, and then uh, other artists, uh, artists of color, artists who work with taboo subject matters like birth. I have a birth photographer who
Yeah.
does,
That's incredible.
yeah, historical staged births, abortion. That I have an Indian
Mm.
artist who works a lot with women's rights over their bodies, abortion, things like that. We actually just had her work published in Le Monde, the French newspaper
Cool.
publication,
Yeah.
and a French collector bought it after it being published for about
That's
24
great.
hours.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, it has to get out there though. And a lot of galleries who depend on sales, to make a living, they don't want to take the risk. And I think it's worth it. And so we also represent artists who work with alternative materials. So we're doing a paper and fiber show in the
Yeah. Great.
summer, and a lot of these materials that the artists are using have historically been seen as craft. We also have a sculptor who uses all recycled, upcycled materials, and
Yeah.
we're trying to elevate those artists in their work to be seen as fine art instead of as craft, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
also a sign of gender inequity, because
Right.
craft is largely performed by women. So
Yeah. 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 That's cool. So then, okay. So you've you have the gallery, and then now you've started. No, I'm going to get it. It's the Sixth Street Studio, and what's the name of the
sorry, yes,
nonprofit?
Sixth Street Studios and Art Center.
An art center. Okay. And what's kind of then the mission and the goal for that? Because I think even you're going to have artist residencies as well, right? Or
Yeah. So when I opened the gallery, I had a ton of people coming and asking me when I was going to represent local artists. And I represent some local artists who
yeah.
fall in my mission statement for the gallery, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't support all the local artists. And so when I saw that need, I, kind of was waiting for the perfect space to open up, and it did in the old dispatch building.
Yeah, great.
So I created this organization that not only has artist studios, because I think that's important to create an artist community, is having studios, affordable
Yeah,
studios for artists
yeah,
in a collaborative sense,
yeah,
but also to have exhibitions, opportunity for exhibition space and also classroom and workshop space.
yeah, great.
A lot of artists make a living teaching classes, and it is very expensive to have a space that you rent out dedicated to that work. And so having these spaces where artists can rent by the hour or something like that makes it a little bit easier for them, so they don't have this huge commitment of a monthly rent in downtown, because the rents are increasing every
Yeah,
every day practically.
that's great. Yeah. Now, is that officially opened, or where are you at in the process of that of
Yeah, so
Sixth Street?
we've technically been open since February, but we're taking it pretty slowly because we were working on the back half of the building. We had some issues, and we finally have overcome them. And our warehouse studios and classroom space are finally finished as of today. I think they're putting on the finishing
Awesome.
touches.
Yeah. So
So
does that mean like sheetrock and electricity, fire codes,
yeah,
all that stuff?
yeah. So we had a little bit of a problem with the realization that part of our building was sinking into the ground.
Oh, ouch.
And we had some back and forth with our landlord, and everything ended up turning out fine and great. It just took a little bit longer than
Sure.
expected. But now we're all done. We have 9 studios,
Great.
and all of them I have everything rented out except for one, and then we have an artist residency studio at the front, which is super exciting to
Yeah.
have that availability for an artist to come in.
Yeah. Now, for like that artist residency, will you be doing just local artists, or is that something going to open up international to kind of bring kind of that kind of vibe?
Yeah, so we are going to be, we're advertising it right now as regional, but we are opening it up to national and international. Uh, as of right now, we don't have anywhere, like if an artist wanted to come in, they could use the studio for free and all of our resources for free, but they would have to find accommodation on their own.
Yeah.
We're working with the city and the local business association to see if we can create some sort of fund to help
Yeah.
bring in artists, because I think that would really benefit downtown Gilroy and really the South Valley in general, to have that kind of different
Yeah.
perspective come into town.
Yeah. I mean, so what is your thoughts on that, on the relationship between the local and international? I mean, Gallery 1202, you're focused on a mission, kind of like women, underserved artists and voices. Um, and so then when you were putting shows and there are people there, then the local community was like, hey, what about us?
Right.
So what do you think? How do you think those two play together between doing international or, well known maybe artists with the local community? How do they help or hinder each other?
Well, I think that we're fortunate that we have the Gilroy Art Alliance next door to the gallery, and they feature a lot of local artists as well.
Yeah.
And so we do have some good resources between the studios and the Art Alliance for local artists, but there has definitely been a, a spoken desire to have international influence, and having outside art come in and uh, be able to experience that in Gilroy, instead of
Yeah.
having to go up to the city to see something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the two,
Is that I'm just kind of curious, the voices that have been saying that, is that more kind of from the city political side, or is that actually from the residents who
no,
kind
from the residents. Yeah,
of okay.
I actually haven't had a lot of conversations with the city. I pitched this artist residency idea to the business association. I haven't heard back from them, so I don't really know
Yeah.
what
Okay.
their side of it is. But from the patrons who've come into the gallery,
Yeah.
I have gotten so much great feedback on having these international artists here, and even artists from the East Coast. Like we had a show in our newly renovated, because I renovated the gallery since we last did our interview with your
Yeah.
magazine. And my first show in here was artists from all across the United States, and people were just so taken. It was like a breath of fresh air for them to have
Yeah.
this kind of new and different art and everything. And then we had our show with our two artists from India, and
Yeah.
I think that people really, they really love it and they want to see it, because on the other hand, it's international, but in Gilroy, we have such a mixed demographic of people that sometimes it's local to them, you know?
Sure.
So,
Yeah. 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 That's cool. Yeah. So now with, so having international work and local work and kind of bringing this all together, you also have a pretty robust online kind of experience, right? And I'm sure COVID has kind of like pushed that a little bit. Talk about that. Like, how can, Gallery 1202, how has like the web helped kind of like the expression of your shows and exhibits?
yeah, so we definitely had a huge learning curve. We were very fortunate to get a couple fairs, in-person fairs, in before COVID hit, which is
Yeah.
great. And I had just joined a platform, an internet platform called First Dibs, a couple months beforehand. And when everything went dark, I fully pivoted to internet and really pushing the platforms that we have, the online platforms.
Yeah.
Obviously, I stopped doing shows. I didn't really do any virtual shows at all during the pandemic until we opened up our gallery space again.
Yeah.
And so that internet sales were really good. Like they really, we grew a lot. We invested in print publication and art magazines because of that internet aspect, because people would also be looking, they'd be at home looking at our magazines and then they could hop online. And so that worked out really well for us. Now, on the flip side, we also invested heavily into a virtual art fair with
Yeah.
a really well-known art fair vendor, and that did not go over well.
Oh,
And
really?
it was grossly mishandled, the business aspect on the vendor's part, and there were so many upset vendors, exhibitors, and it was just, I think that they were trying to do something so different and so new and didn't quite have enough time or something, and they kind of
Sure.
misadvertised what it was going to be. And so there were ups, but there were also, I mean, that was a huge downs. Art fairs are very expensive, and so
Yeah.
to invest that much money and then have it just flop for, I would say it flopped for like 75% of the exhibitors.
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah,
Do you
it's just,
think do you think that was just because it was kind of a new way experience in art fair? Was it that like the audience maybe wasn't really into it, or
no,
what do you think?
in my opinion, when I looked at it from a business perspective, as a professional, they didn't advertise. For one, they didn't advertise nearly enough,
Sure.
and then
Yeah.
they also they misrepresented represented what it was going to be like. And
Hmm.
so they and so the exhibitors weren't really prepared, I guess you could say, for what it was going to be like. And there was a lot of like last minute issues and a lot of technical glitches, and then there was
Sure.
advertising. And so really what it came down to was there was very little traffic, and the
Yeah.
traffic that did come ran into so many issues that it was a total turnoff.
Yeah. That's too bad.
So,
Yeah.
I wouldn't blame it on it being an art fair online, because there were several that worked well, that were successful.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a learning curve for
A
everyone.
growing experience.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it would have been nice if they were a little bit more humble about it, because they definitely weren't. There was no accountability or anything, so that was rough. But
Yeah.
other than that, like we did, the sales were great considering the situation. We opened up the gallery in June with our A Thread of Color by Natalie Chicarico,
Yeah.
and that was great. And then we had, um, that went really well, and we did most of our sales over the internet for that show. And then
Yeah.
we moved more into in person with our local. We had a local artist here, Whitney Pintello, and that was more of a in person as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. So then for you, this last year, I mean, it's been obviously, I mean, I don't know when you had Sixth Street kind of like already in mind, if that was even at the time that we had interviewed you about a year ago. But this last year with COVID, with having, making pivots with 1202 and then starting the Sixth Street, what's something you kind of learned more about yourself than necessarily the business or even the art world? What's something that you found out about yourself or learned about yourself?
that's an excellent question. Um, I think that I realized that what I really love to do is I love to get this. I love to have the satisfaction of helping people and
Yeah.
creating something that is meaningful, that has impact on other people's lives, like positive impact on their lives,
Hmm.
and obviously more, not just in, for taxes. For me, I guess this year I realized that I love doing them because I, more than often than not, I help people. Like, they're very
Yeah.
grateful for, the advice I give them and everything like that. And I think that's wonderful. And I
Yeah.
really enjoy that part. And now that I've moved into the art sector, meeting these, artists who have been just neglected by galleries or mistreated by galleries, or, not given the time of day, which is, to me, I look at their work and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, you have
Yeah.
amazing work. And to be able to shine a spotlight on them has been an incredible experience. And then to get the feedback from collectors, like,
Yeah. That's great.
in my first two fair booths, people were just like, these works are so incredible. Like, I've never seen anything like this. I love your setup. And it's not me, none of it is me. It's just me bringing all these artists together, but it's the artists. And
Yeah. Yeah.
giving them that opportunity has been like so incredible.
Yeah.
um and then with Sixth Street, like, I have been getting so many people like, thank you so much for opening this, we've needed something like this for so long.
Yeah.
And just, people are so eager to participate and everything. I had another woman saying, like, you need to open up one of these in San Jose. And so I just, being successful for me is not, I mean, yes, financially, obviously I need to feed my kids and, all
Sure.
that stuff, but I
The
really
reward.
enjoyed that portion of it, is just making things work to benefit other people in these ways that haven't been done yet. It's just immensely
Yeah.
satisfying for me.
That's
um,
great.
and I
Yeah.
get to stare at art all the time, which is obviously my passion since I have 2 degrees in it. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, that's the thing is like, I remember when I had my own little epiphany and said like, okay, really, to live is to give. Like, in the end of the day, like, what's the most satisfying thing is really helping others,
yeah,
And I think, you can accumulate wealth and money and whatever, but that can see, even like you were saying, like, you enjoy doing the taxes because it's helping people. If you're just doing stuff just, and you don't see that benefit, it's so hard to get joy out of life. So I'm
yeah.
excited for you. That's great. Well, I'll have to tell you, so that's what you've learned about yourself, which is great. Well, I have to tell you what the community has learned is that you're a badass. You're awesome. You know what I mean? I am so excited just for not, for the South County, for Gilroy, for Watsonville, Morgan Hill, and even, since I'm more of a downtowner, San Jose, even
Mhm.
like what that means for just the connection of this whole region. I think it's really cool what you're doing. It's so awesome. Um, so, what is it as you look into the future, 2022 and et cetera, down the road? Um, what is it that you're kind of like, yeah, this is kind of what I want to see happen? Like next year, if we were to talk again next year on April 27th, 2022, What was something that you would like to see have accomplished or finished or done?
Well, I definitely, definitely two things on both the gallery and the nonprofit. So in terms of the nonprofit, I would really love to see it just, I mean, ultimately just being utilized, becoming a resource for
Yeah,
South Valley and for, San Benito County, even Watsonville. I've had people interested in
yeah,
that, and just seeing that grow as a community space where, because we want to do art markets and have, local artists be able to rent stalls out every Saturday. We want to create art walks where we
yeah,
partner with local businesses and set up an artist, so people can walk downtown and, one evening and kind of see all these artworks and everything. That
yeah,
is, I mean, a huge goal for me. And I was very fortunate to have an intern, Abby Betancourt, come to me in the inception of the organization, and she volunteered to intern and help me, and she has shown an amazing amount of dedication. And so we've actually, she's just taken over the voluntary position of directorship for the nonprofit.
yeah. Awesome.
So that's been great, and she's got all the community vision. So I have no
Yeah,
doubts that by this time next year, if we were talking, she'd be on this phone call telling you all about the amazing things that we've done and
yeah,
everything like that.
yeah,
Hopefully bringing on some, at-risk youth programming, and we want to do like homeless art supply drives and things like that.
yeah.
So
That's incredible. Cool.
yeah, that'll be, that for the nonprofit, that's where we're kind of aiming. And then for the gallery, I would really love for next year to be eyeing, another branch of the gallery to be in a bigger city to get more eyes on these exhibitions that we're creating.
Yeah,
We've gone virtual, so we have 3D exhibits, 3D tours for all of our exhibits. You can always see them all online. But I would really love to put these artists in front of, instead of hundreds of eyes, maybe thousands, in a major city. And I
yeah.
have my amazing gallery manager here chomping at the bit to live in a big city. So
So you're
I
going to do a sister gallery?
Yeah, I think that
Yeah,
having another branch of the gallery would be pretty incredible. Yeah, so that would be my kind of goal, is to create a sister gallery in a larger city, maybe Austin, San Francisco, LA,
yeah,
something like that, and share exhibits, and then also have other, separate exhibits. So we could keep some more regional stuff happening here in Gilroy, and then also some regional stuff happening there. And
yeah,
hopefully be planning to attend our first international art fair.
yeah. That's good goals. I'm excited about that. Now, what for you? Are you looking to, well, one, are you looking to get back into your own art practice? And two, why don't you explain the type of art that you personally do?
Yeah. Um, so I've been working on some small projects in terms of my own art practice,
Yeah,
but I took a very intentional break from it after
yeah,
my artist residency that kind of spurred this whole gallery thing, because I really want to be able to focus and have intention when
yeah,
I'm practicing, and I haven't been in the right space, I guess you could say, to do that. So one day I would love to, decide and be in a place in my life where I'm ready to do that, and maybe even go back to school and get my MFA. I've always
yeah,
really wanted to get my master's in fine arts and have that kind of structure and guidance in terms of creating that. I think for me, that creates the necessary mental headspace, I guess you could say,
yeah,
to practice and to get a good start on my journey. So for now, I'm just kind of dabbling here and there.
yeah. And what kind of work do you do? How would you describe
So
your art practice?
I have a couple different sets of things that I do. I initially did large scale, non objective oil painting, and that's what I did for about 2/3 of my solo show was that, and most of them have sold. So I only have like 2 or 3 pieces left. And then the other part of that was interacting with the community and reusing materials that would have been thrown away otherwise. So I used like old mat board and recycled Topo Chico bottles and just
Mm-hmm.
things like that you know represented something. Or at the Works Gallery in San Jose, I did an installation about the amount of waste generated by the Super Bowl, and
Wow. Yeah.
it was kind of you know a performance and installation, because we hosted a military function at our house and like used that trash for my installation
Oh,
for,
wow. Yeah.
with Santa Clara hosting the Super Bowl game. So that was part of it. And
Yeah.
now I've moved into smaller works on wood paneling that are abstract, but they draw inspiration from children's books, because I read probably 500, at least 500 children's books like every year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. If you were to say what your personal like mission statement in life is, like what's kind of like your philosophy that drives you and guides you?
man, that's a hard one. Hmm. I just, I think it just goes along the lines of what we talked about earlier in terms of, finding a niche that needs help and kind of supporting that, and staying true to yourself at the same time. But I just, I mean, I guess that's just part of it. It's just like
Yeah.
helping people who kind of need it, whether your kid is having a total meltdown and needs that like calm, for you to be that calm in their storm, or
Yeah.
if it's, your friend who's freaking out because they think they owe a bunch of money for taxes because the IRS sent them a notice. Like, I just,
Yeah.
kind of just helping people when they need it, and not passing
Yeah.
judgment on that, and just kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
being steady in that way. Uh, I think that's, I don't know, that's kind of where I've gone in terms of all of my business and organizational adventures, is
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, that's awesome to see you at that place. That's fun. Cool. Well, thank you very much. I am excited to coming down to the gallery pretty soon, and also to come by 6th Street once. Well, I got my first dose, so once I get my second dose and things are opened up a little bit more, I'm sure this summer I will definitely be down there. But yeah, thank you, Emily, for what you're doing, and thank you for your time to talk about what you are doing, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. And I have to say, I appreciate what you do too, because you bring the spotlight on a lot of people. So
Sure.
um,
We're
I think
doing it
that's
together. Yeah. Awesome.
well. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. We'll talk to you there.
Okay.
Bye. To find out more about Gallery 1202, visit their website at gallery1202.com. And for information on 6th Street Studios and Art Center, their website at 6thstreetartstudios.org. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Visit our website to become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the local creatives. This episode's music is Tang by Chris Inman, who is featured in issue 13.2. Follow him on Spotify at Chris Inman and on Instagram at chris.inman, as well as his record label, Orange Label Records.